Hi there, folks. This is Sam Price, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Probate Notes. Today, I have a really special guest on. He is pretty much the guru on special needs. This is Kevin Urbatsch with Urbatsch Law Firm, PC. Hi there, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great, thanks. If you could, I'd just like to get a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. It started, I started as an attorney doing litigation work, a lot of trial work. And after about 7 years of doing that, I decided that I wanted to get out of the trial work business. And there was a recovering litigator program through the National Network of Estate Planning Attorneys I attended. And so they taught me how to become an estate planning attorney in 2 lovely weeks in Indianapolis. And after I did a few estate plans, I ran across my first estate plan that the family had a loved one with special needs. And so we worked with another attorney in creating that special needs trust for them. And I started working with that attorney to kind of review what is special needs planning. Because at the time, it was not a very well-known subject. There really wasn't a lot of special needs planners out there. And there certainly wasn't any books or guides. So what I did was kind of really dive into it. And after working with this attorney for a bit, I worked for CEB and helped create the book on special needs trust planning, drafting, and administration. That was about 2 years and working with like 20 other attorneys in the state in creating that 2-volume guide. From that guide, I was also at the same time running my own practice and spending a lot of time working with trial attorneys who were settling cases. And part of that settling of the cases was for these people with disabilities who had public benefits. And so we had to do a lot of what we call first party special needs planning. I was also working with a lot of nonprofits in the area that focus on people with disabilities, and we did programs for them. And so that's where we do what we call third party special needs planning, which is really planning for families who have a loved one with special needs, primarily mom and dad leaving assets after they're gone for their loved one.
And so I've even heard of people talk. I've had someone say, "Hey, look, I get Medi-Cal benefits, and my medication is 30 grand a month. And if I were to lose my Medi-Cal benefits, I would die because I can't afford the medication I'm on." Have you heard some of these stories about why people would need these needs-based government assistance programs?
I mean, I've seen it's not just, it's medication, it's if they're in skilled nursing. It primarily is a big deal because there's a lot of programs for people with disabilities, particularly mental illness, that are only available through government programs. Even private health insurance doesn't cover these things. So if you don't have Medi-Cal, you lose eligibility for in-home care, for skilled nursing care, and for a lot of the mental health services that are available. And it doesn't matter how much money you have because you can't private pay for those services. I mean, I guess you could private pay for caregiving, but you're going to be out of money pretty quickly if you have to pay 24/7, particularly. So yeah, having access to Medi-Cal and IHSS is critical and life saving for many of our clients. So again, it is bigger than just worrying about the money. It's protecting the healthcare, the standard of life, the quality of life going forward.
What is that mental health services? Is this counseling or is this also medications?
Both.
Both.
So there's certain programs that Medi-Cal will cover. Now, again, it's our way of trying to assist them by saying this is an opportunity for you, but then they have to take the next step and find somebody who's willing to accept. And even sometimes you find somebody, you're on a waiting list for getting their services. So it's kind of part of our broken healthcare system in its entirety, but it's focused really on the poorest people who have a disability that impairs their ability to like work. So it's not like they can work their way out of any of these issues. So this is what we do as special needs planners is we try to create a trust or a plan for them so that they can preserve their Medi-Cal, preserve the money to enhance their quality of life. Because without that, they would lose their health care. They might lose the ability to live where they are living. They might lose pretty much everything. And it's not like they can just work their way out of that situation. So Yeah, it's pretty challenging.
Can you shine some light on what you can use the funds for in a special needs trust?
Yeah, I mean, so that has been a huge area of confusion, and not just amongst clients, but even judges have had issues with that. Fortunately, we had a recent Court of Appeals case, the McGee versus Department of Healthcare Services, that came out, and that appellate court really nailed it. They said, look, you can pay for anything from a special needs trust that's not illegal or against public policy. So anything that enhances their quality of life can be paid for. If you pay for some things, it might reduce or eliminate eligibility for public benefits. But the way we write our trusts, we say that's a good trade-off, because sometimes it makes more sense just to pay for something and lose a little bit of public benefit if the end result is the beneficiary has a higher quality of life. So the Court of Appeals in that McGee case went right along with that. So as I tell my clients, yeah, it's true. Well, I should say quickly that SSI used to reduce the check if you paid for if some third party paid their food or clothing expenses, but they removed that, both food and clothing, from that list. So now it's only shelter, and shelter meaning rent and some utilities. But if some third party pays that, they reduce the check by a third of the federal benefit rate. So right now, in California, in SSI, you get about $12.33 a month for an individual. They would reduce that by about $350 if somebody else paid their shelter. But that's usually a good trade-off in California. I'd rather pay for a nice apartment. They live in a safe place. They might lose $350 a month, but again, that's a trade-off we almost always make. And now there's other ways to avoid that through creative administration. One is using an ABLE account. You take the money from the trust, send it to the ABLE, have ABLE pay the shelter. That does not count as improper shelter, and they don't treat that as a penalty. So you can play a little, we like to call legalized money laundering. The short answer is really anything that enhances that person's quality of life is something that can be paid for. Understand something that right now there's something called the Deficit Reduction Act. And it was passed way back when George W. Bush was president. And it required every state to pass this Deficit Reduction Act. And so doing that meant the end of stat gifting. Somehow, California to this day has not implemented the Deficit Reduction Act. So we still have it on our books. So what you do is, so they issue what they call the average private pay rate every year. And it says, this is how much money that is the average private pay rate for a skilled nursing facility in California. I think it's around 14,400 or something like that this year. I don't remember exactly. And as long as you gift less than that, let's just say you have 30,000, I'm going to gift 14,000. So I give the whole 30,000. They would treat that as a 1 month penalty. So the 1 month is free because it's under 14,000, and then the amount over would trigger a 1 month penalty. Okay. But the way California does it is you could actually gift every single day. They treat each gift as a new month. So if you give 14,000 today, you can give 14,000 tomorrow, 14,000 the day after, and there's zero penalty for even though you're giving away all this money. And to make it even more insane, you could give 14,000 if they have 4 kids to each of the 4 kids each day with no penalty. So that's stat gifting. Now understand that doesn't work for SSI. They would treat that as a penalty, and they'd lose 3 years of SSI. But it does work for Medi-Cal and IHSS. They don't like it, but it's part of their rules. So you can gift a lot of money away that way. Of course, it has to be a real gift. It can't be a gift like, hey, I'm going to give you this money, but wait, you're going to take care of me with it. It has to be a true gift. Now, if you make it a true gift, and then that person out of the goodness of their heart creates, say, a third party special needs trust with that money, then as long as it was real, like it was truly there, it was a true gift, and they truly set that up, out of the goodness of their heart, there'll again be no penalty, but you could see how they could unwind that transaction. Just say that was a scam. So stack gifting is certainly something to consider. I've done it a handful of times. I've almost regretted it every time because sometimes the person you're giving the money to just keeps it. Sometimes they don't help the person. And sometimes it just causes family strife because if some kids got some and some didn't, they'll then they start talking about undue it because it does look like a little bit like undue influence or an elder financial abuse because you're coming in every day and taking 14,000, 28,000 of the elder's money each day. And I've had banks where they've reported that as elder financial abuse.